Um, so my plan for the 30 minutes, I thought I'd just tell you my story and, how we got started and what we're doing now, what have you. Some of the key highlights of our path so far. And then just some of the beliefs that guide me. I'm looking at my Post-it notes as I get organized here, some beliefs that guide me. Some tools, which is just, I love tools and talking about how to, do business better. So I'm a big fan of that. So we'll talk about some tools and then just some of my priorities as well. So once again, my name is Hope Lawrence. My husband is David Lawrence. We moved to Palmyra about 8 years ago. So my two sons, Hudson and Henry. Hudson was 5 and Henry was 2. And I had previously worked in New York. I was a product manager for Standard & Poor's, which was a great introduction to the world of business. So you did a little bit of everything. I did a little bit of operations and a little bit of finance and a little bit of marketing, a whole lot of legal, working on contracts and what have you. And so we were in New York, and then because David's Australian, so we had the opportunity to go to London, and I worked in London for a little bit. And then we got pregnant with Hudson and we moved back to Australia. And I was like, that's it. I never want to work in a cubicle again. I want out of the rat race. I was an older mom. I think I was 39 when Hudson was born. And so I was just kind of done. And, we were very fortunate that, that I could make that decision. And I stayed home with Hudson and then Henry for 5 years. And during that time, I, thought about what I wanted to do. And I'd always been a baker, but still wasn't sure what I was going to do. We had Henry, we were in Fort Worth, we've moved a lot. So we were in Fort Worth and we're like, let's move to Virginia. Let's raise the boys in the country. And, then we'll figure out what we wanted to do. And at this point I was fairly sure that I wanted, my own business. And I was like, what can I bake? What can I do? And we actually thought about buying a bakery down in Farmville, but I was like, oh, that kind of goes against my whole plan of being home with the boys. I would always be at the bakery. So we found this beautiful property in Palmyra. It's an old bed and breakfast. And the best thing of all was that it had a commercial kitchen in the basement. And so I looked at this market in New York, and I was like, what do people do? And I stumbled across granola. I had never made granola in my life. I had Nature's Valley granola bars or what have you was all I knew about granola. I was like, fine, I'm gonna make granola. And I was really into, as I was reading the different business books, I was really into all the positive affirmations and positive thinking. And I was like, wouldn't it be nice if you started your day, and actually I had this thought before I had granola. So I was like, wouldn't it be nice if you started your day with all these positive affirmations and motivational messages, whatnot, instead of, the morning news and bad news on the radio. It's like, well, wouldn't that be great if everyone started their day that way? So it was like my eureka moment. And I was like, great, I'm going to have these positive affirmations and I'm going to put it on the back of a granola bag. And that started what was originally called Good News Granola. And so we moved to Fluvanna. I had never seen the property that we bought until I walked up with my suitcase in hand, because the boys, being 2 and 5, and we were out in Texas. So we had come to Virginia a couple of times looking for property. But then I had had enough. I'm like, David, you just go. You look at this one. I'm happy with it. I think it's great. Go look at this house. So we rocked up, and that was the first time that we saw the property. But anyway, so we started the granola company in the basement. We had about 1,200 square feet. It was a commercial kitchen, and it had another room, the dining room area for the people. And And that was 8 years ago. So we've been in business for 8 years. We moved out of the basement about 4 years ago, and we now have what I call a proper commercial space besides Salon de Chano. And we have now a team of around 12 employees, part-time employees. And it's all that David and I, have done for 8 years, and it's worked out great, and we love it. And we've been, happy with it, and successful with it, and profitable with it. So, I'm truly grateful for that, and so grateful for our team. I'm so pleased when I was getting organized to log on. I was like, I wonder how many men are going to be on this call. Is it going to be men? And the reason I say that, I'm happy to see everyone, but I'm so happy to see the women as well, because I think it's, so important to have women in business. And one of my goals that I set fairly early on, the first year, was that I wanted to get to $1 million in revenue. And the reason that I wanted to get to that number was, at the time, I think it was something like only 1.8% of women's businesses make it to $1 million in revenue. And I was looking for that figure last night, and it's now up to 4%. So 4% of women's businesses make it to $1 million in revenue. I think, knock on wood, I think we're going to make it this year. When I first started, I put a Post-it note, and we started in 2013. I think I started the count at 2014. But anyway, I thought I would do it in 5 years, and we haven't done it yet. But like I said, I think I think this is our year. But so I just throw that out there. If you are, motivated by numbers or stats or what have you, like, I just wanted to be one of that one of the then 1.8%. And now I want to be part of the 4%. And as I said, it's great to see everyone, but also it's great to see, so many women leading their businesses. So some of the key points, I think, in our journey along the way now. So we, again, going back to, I believe in positive affirmations and positive thoughts, and just, thinking big and whatnot. And I wanted to be on the Today Show. And I used to think about me, and at the time it was Matt Lauer, right? So I'd think about me and Matt Lauer on the couch talking about my company on the Today Show. And so pretty early on, I found this company, and they're still in business if you're keen to work on your PR, but it was called 10, like the metal, TIN shingle, like hanging out your 10 shingle. And they had this service where, they would give you different PR contacts and magazines, and they still do. So you can buy their list from them or what have you. But they had this great service. It was called the Pitch Whisperer service, and they would read your pitch and help you improve it or what have you. So anyway, and then after a while, once they I guess you proved yourself to them or what have you, they would give you the contacts for the Today Show. So I was with them for a little bit, and I was like, I'm ready. I want to pitch the Today Show. And this was after 10 months in business. So they gave me the details. I'll be like, yep. We sent the granola off to the producer of the Kathy Lee and Hoda show. And that was in, I think, July. And I was going to the beach, and I was so sure that I was going to get on the Today Show. Like the week we were at the beach, I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? Like, we're going to get on the Today Show. So it didn't happen in July, it didn't happen in August. And, but I knew it was going to happen. Like, get me on the show. And this woman stayed at the property that we have. It was a bed and breakfast. So we had the bed and breakfast for a while. We don't have it anymore. So this woman called, and because she had left her boots in one of the cabins that we have. And so she called, and she said, she was talking to David, and I was downstairs in the basement baking. It was like early in the morning. And all of a sudden I heard this yelling. I was like, what's going on? What's going on? And Grant, you know, again, the boys were 2 and 5, and it's, you know, always chaos. I'm like, what's going on up there? And David comes down and he's like, we're on the Today Show. Like, the granola's on the Today Show. And sure enough, and that's what this woman said, she's like, I think your granola is sitting on Kathy Lee's desk. And sure enough, our granola was on Kathy Lee's desk. It's still on, you can Google it or what have you. She kept saying she's like, this man sent me, and off screen, they're like, no, you know, this woman. And they never said the name of the company. She never said the name of the company. She held up the granola to the screen now. She said my name. She's like, Hope, and because off screen, they're like, Hope Lawrence. And she's like, oh. But anyway, so we made it on the Today Show. And that was on my list of big things that have happened. That was, you know, definitely big. And that, you know, like overnight quadrupled our online business, which at the time was still very small. So, you know, quadrupling it wasn't hard, but that was pretty amazing. So we were on the Today Show. And then actually even before that, but more recently, so we, I'd always wanted to be on the planogram for Whole Foods. So being on the planogram means that every store in a region is going to put you on the shelf. And that happened, I think it's been about 2 years. So we finally made the planogram. And that's been huge for us. Like, Whole Foods is a huge part of our business. And we got into Whole Foods after 6 months of business. Our first store was Feast in Charlottesville, which I'm super grateful for that. I actually went to grade school with Kate, who's the owner of Feast. And when we moved into the area, and the inspector was inspecting our kitchen, and he's like, oh, you've got to talk to Feast. And I'm like, yeah, I'll talk to Feast. And he's like, no, but you really got to talk to Feast. I was like, yes, I'll talk to Feast. And he's like, there's this great woman that runs it, Kate Collier. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Like, I went to a grade school with Kate Collier. Like, surely it's not the same one. And sure enough, it was. I hadn't talked to Kate since I was, I think, in 7th grade. But anyway, so Whole Foods, that was definitely life-changing. And then getting our own space. So we were in the basement for about 4 years. And I swear we used like every square inch of these 1,200 square feet. And I remember talking to, I don't know if she's on here, Sue at Red Rocker Candy. She's like, you know, you've got to get your own space. Like, you will, you know, your business will double and triple and blah, 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 you know, just, you know, get out of your house and what have you. And, you know, sure enough, you know, business has increased, and having a nice commercial space has been, you know, definitely life-changing. So I'll just pause for a minute. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat, or if anyone wants to, well, that would probably be easier if you just drop them in the chat, but otherwise, let me just look at my time, about halfway through. So I'll just go over, and this kind of came up with as I was talking, but I'll talk about, you know, just some of the beliefs that I have and priorities that I have. So my first belief, and I think that this one I definitely had to work on, and once I got it, it's been, again, I keep saying life-changing, but so my number one thing is gratitude. And, you know, I don't know that I was, you know, a super negative person, but I definitely wasn't as grateful and positive as I am now. So an example of gratitude that I always talk about, like, you know, especially being in a small town here in Palmyra, you know, before I would have walked into the Palmyra post office, for example, and saw the long line and grumbled to myself, or, you know, got mad or whatever. So instead I flipped that around, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I have a post office, you know, 5 minutes from my house, or I'm so grateful that our small town has, you know, this great post office right in town, and that, you know, I'm forgetting her name at the moment, but the lady that works there all the time, you know, I'm so grateful that she's moving these people through the line so quickly. So I really try to practice my gratitude. I try to teach that to my boys. And I think, you know, I believe in the law of attraction. So the law of attraction is like what you put out in the world or what you want, you know, you put it out there and the universe kind of helps create it or what have you. And it's a little airy fairy, and I still struggle with that, but I do think that it all stems from positivity and being grateful for what you have. And, you know, just more comes back to you when you have, that sort of attitude. I also believe in abundance. I believe that, you know, there's so much granola out there. There's so many different people making it. And, you know, I don't think about who I compete against. There's plenty of customers. There are plenty of people out there with money. There are plenty of shoppers. And so, you know, I don't, I look at now and then what other granola companies are doing, but it's not in a competitive spirit. Just to, kind of see what's going on out there. But, you know, I believe that there's definitely, and especially in this day and time with the internet and what have you, you know, there's so much abundance out there and customers out there waiting for your product, or your business or your service or what have you. So that belief has treated me well. And then on my bag, on every bag at the top is kind of my summary belief is do your best, be kind, and dream big. So, and again, going back with the boys, you know, I should say, you know, just do your best. I don't expect A's or, you know, with grades or whatever, like just do your best and be kind, be the kind kid. And definitely dream big with what you can achieve and what you can do and what have you. So those would be my key beliefs there. I had some questions. Where did you begin selling? So that's a good story, actually. So we moved in July, and I had signed up for the Charlottesville winter market. And they wrote, but I had started, you know, I did some testing in Fort Worth before I left of different recipes. So I had one recipe, the pecan granola, the blue bag. And so we were here, we were getting, you know, we had to do the renovations on this house and getting the commercial kitchen downstairs, you know, certified or what have you. And I was starting with the name and I was still playing around with labels and what have you. But then the city market called and they were like, we have a space now. Do you want a space? And that was in October. And I was afraid to say no because I thought, well, if I say no, they won't give me a space for the winter market. Like, I'm ready for December. I'm not ready for October. But I took it. So I sold our first bag of granola at the Charlottesville City Market. I went to the market with 20 bags of granola. And I was quite sure, other than probably eating one of them, I was quite sure that I was going to come home with 19 bags. And I remember, especially if you have kids, like I remember thinking like, oh my God, like I'm going to have to tell them, I'm almost tearing up thinking about this. Like I'm going to have to tell the boys that mama didn't sell, you know, any of this granola. But I sold out. So I sold all 20 bags. And so that's how we got started. So I started the city market. My very first customer was the woman from Greenwood Grocery out in Crozet, I think. And she's like, do you sell wholesale? And I barely knew what wholesale meant. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, sure, I sell wholesale. Like, yep, I'll sell wholesale. You know, someday. So that's how I got started. At what scale? So, you know, that was the scale of it. You know, we got into Feast, I think probably about a month later. But it was just me at the beginning. My first employee was, for those in Fluvanna, was, you know, one of the teacher's daughters, Clay Connor, Mrs. Connor at Central. Her daughter was my first employee. And I remember talking to a coach at the time, and I was talking about how I used to bake granola. I would bake the granola in the morning, and then I would put the boys to bed, and then I would go downstairs and bag the granola at night. And I used to bag the granola at like 1 o'clock in the morning and like so exhausted. And because I had mom, you know, didn't want to do it during the day while they were up and about or you. So I would do it at night. And I remember this coach saying, like, you didn't move to the country to live the good life and whatnot, to be bagging granola at 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, get an employee, like, let someone help you. So that's, and then we just went from there. And that's always been our approach. Like, I bake a certain amount, I figure that out, get those customers sorted, and then we bake more. And again, it's been 8 years, so we just grown and grown and grown. And like I said, hopefully we'll make, $1 million this year in revenue. With packaging, so we just started with labels on bags. And then I did pay a person for the logo, and I finally paid, when I finally went to printed bags, I had a designer for that. So whoever asked that question, if you have any questions for that, just email me. And I'm super happy to help you with that. Can you talk about the packaging design again? So that, and then James, you might be helpful if you want to email me later with those questions. I can help you more with packaging and shelf placement. I think the stores just kind of organize that, and you get what you get. Did you ever hit a point where you thought the company wouldn't make it big? Let me finish that. I'll come back to that. So my priorities. I really want to get to tools because that's kind of the fun stuff. But let me talk about my priorities. So, my people, we try to be very family and mostly family focused. So most of my employees are stay-at-home parents, retirees, college kids come back on the, the holidays. So I always say your kids come first. You have an event, you go to it and don't think twice about it. Someone's sick, you text me, you're not coming in. Like, family first, and that has worked out well. I'm starting to focus more on processes and SOPs, standard. I just want to say standard. It is standard operating procedure. Just putting things in writing, and this is what we've been working on at the factory. Like, anyone should be able to do any job because we all do it the same way. Like, this is how we do X and this is how we do Y. So I've been working on that and getting that written down and documented. And I kind of wish I had done that earlier, because I think I could have avoided some of the problems. But, work on having standard operating procedures of how everyone does everything. And then my third priority, and what I'm more focused on these days, I really want to help others. Like, I'm really into, I had this blog and it's offline at the moment, but, helping others start their businesses. I mean, we've been very fortunate, this provides our income, and it has always provided our income since day one. So I'm just trying to give back with that. I have 4 minutes left, so I want to talk about how we kind of run our business. And there's a previous comment about, financials and not having your documentation together. If you're, new on this or what have you, just use QuickBooks, and use QuickBooks from day one. I wish I had, I didn't use QuickBooks for about 2 years, and I had to pay for someone to help me integrate and figure it out. So just start QuickBooks, get your bank accounts organized, do it this holiday season and what have you, so you're ready to go on January 1st and get that organized. My website is built on Shopify. It's DIY. I paid for a theme, but they have free themes, and I did it all myself. I love Airtable. If you struggle with Excel, Airtable is it's like an online database spreadsheet, and it's so user-friendly and so fantastic, especially if you're trying to share a spreadsheet with someone and more than one person is going into it. I love Airtable for that. I also love Coda, CODA, which I think is actually just as powerful, if not a little bit more powerful than Airtable as far as that. Canva, CANVA, I use for designing, all sorts of things, documents and social media. And, if you're not a designer, which I'm not, Canva is fantastic. Like, you can really create some great things on there, and there's so many templates and what have you. And again, they have a free version, and there's also a paid version. I think that's it. I have 2 minutes left. I'll just say that I left if you scroll up in chat, my email is there. I'm more than happy to, help you in any way that I can. I try to say that I try to have a bit of an open book when it comes to my business and financials or what have you. I think that people don't talk about numbers. And, oh, that's one point I did want to say. I don't think people talk about their numbers. And I think we all grew up, especially, about the same ages here, not, being told you don't talk about money, right? You don't talk about money. But my thing was, and it still is in a bit, that I couldn't see it. Like I couldn't, when I was first starting, like, I'm like, what does it mean to make 200,000? Like, what does that mean? Like, what does it look like? How many employees will I have? What do I need? Like, what does that look like? And then I would find someone, a bit bigger than me. I'm like, what do you do? And then like, what does it mean 400,000 or I just think if you would talk numbers with people, if they ask, and help someone who hasn't reached the point that you have, to help them and say, well, this is what it looks like. And this is what $1 million company looks like. And, for me now, I'm like, well, what does a $5 million company look like? What does a $10 million? I have no idea. And, could I lead a $10 million company? I have no idea. But anyway, so I don't know, just those thoughts there. And that's it, Brian. I don't want to, I told you I could just chat. Like I'll just go with it.
I knew you do so well at just chatting, but I think if you could just answer Rose's question, because I think it happens so often for businesses, was there a moment where you thought, I don't know if this is going to make it or not? And kind of like, if just real quick, that little thing, and then we'll move on to our breakout sessions. But I think that's a cool point.
And I could also flip that and say, is there a point where I thought we would make it big? Like, I think because we grew so gradually, there were definitely moments, because especially I was saying, like, we worked in New York and London, like, David and I used to make, I would say when we used to make money, like we made good money before we did this, right? And so the first year or two, definitely we worried about money. And I thought about getting a proper job and not doing this. But I wanted the business so badly, and I wanted to stay home with the boys so badly, that we just persevered and just pushed through it and just keep going. Next step, like get the next customer, bake more granola. So I definitely had points when I didn't think it would work out. But I guess I just didn't dwell on it. For me, it wasn't an option. Like I didn't want to go work 9 to 5, not that there's anything wrong with it, but I did not want to go work 9 to 5 somewhere. I wanted this to be our life. So I think if you do reach that point, there's definitely no harm or no fault in quitting things. Like, if something's not working out, fine, it's not working out, let's do something else. But it's just your priority. It's just what you want to do. And, maybe this isn't the business for you right now. And maybe you need to try something else, or maybe you put it down for a while. I'm a big fan of, putting things down for a while and coming back to it later. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Hope. Thanks so much for joining us. If you want to learn more about Hope, go to hudsonhenrybakingco.com. You can also email her, hope@hudsonhenrybakingco.com. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And like I said, granola is 2 handfuls good. So
I'll tell you, that's going to be the catchphrase. All right, thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. It was a real honor and, slightly embarrassing. Like, am I really a success? But yeah, I hope this was helpful, and I appreciate the time and the platform and the opportunity to speak with all of you. So thank you. Have a great event. And I got to go chase down my 13-year-old and making sure he's doing his schoolwork.
Bye.